The biggest militaries in the world are always trying to stay on top of cutting-edge technology for a reason. The country with the most technologically advanced weapons would easily be able to conquer their enemies. Think about the invention of the bow and arrow, the gun, and the atomic bomb. There is always something being invented, and some countries have been able to keep their latest technological weapons a secret. That is until 20-30 years pass, when we do finally see something that blows our minds. Join us as we take a look at the 10 most insane secret military vehicles. Harrier Jump Jet. When the public first saw this plane, they couldn't believe their eyes. A military jet that had the ability to take off and land like a helicopter was a thing straight out of science fiction. The Harrier is actually informally known as the Harrier Jump Jet and is a jet-powered attack aircraft capable of vertical or short takeoff landing operations. The plane was manufactured by UK's Hawker Siddeley in the 1960s, and it was introduced and put into service in 1969. During the 1980s, a second-generation Harrier emerged, manufactured in the United States as the AV-8B and in Britain as the British Aerospace Harrier II respectively. The problem is that it could only take off this way with minimum weight, and the fuel consumption was enormous. The Pegasus jet engine supplied around 21,800 pounds of force and could push the plane to Mach 0.9, about 585 knots, which is 673 miles per hour or 1,083 kilometers per hour. Armaments included a 25mm cannon pod, and it had 6 hardpoints under the wing for rockets and missiles. It has since been replaced with a second-generation aircraft. Zuber-class hovercraft. Designed and built in the 1980s to be a much larger and more potent follow-on to the Ace-class LCAC already in service, the Zuber-class took the whole landing craft concept to an extraordinary new level. Whether it be the massive Typhoon-class ballistic submarines or the menacing Kirov-class battle cruisers, the USSR of the 1980s tended to prefer their military hardware massive. When it comes to hovercraft, the Zuber-class Landing Craft Air Cushion, or LCAC, is no different. Compared to the already gargantuan US Navy LCAC, the Zuber-class just dwarfs it. Fully loaded, the US Navy LCAC displaces about 180 tons, while the Zuber-class displaces 3 times that amount. This hovering fortress can hit speeds up to 60 knots in sea state 4 and below, and can handle 5-degree grades and up to 3.5-foot obstacles with relative ease. She can carry 3 tanks inside of her cavernous cargo hold, while the US Navy's LCAC can only carry 1. In other cargo configurations, the giant Zuber-class can transport up to 500 people, or about 375 fully equipped troops, 8 armored personnel carriers, or 10 multi-purpose wheeled military vehicles. 1K-17 Shotzi. During the closing years of the Cold War, the USSR tried to make that part of science fiction come true, and it worked, but not too well. This was once a classified military weapon that entered the Russian army in 1992. By the mid-1970s, the Soviet Union was eagerly pursuing laser weapons on land, at sea, in the air, and in outer space as a useful counter to the US and Western European optics, missiles, spy satellites, and other high-tech systems. In 1982, it built the first full-size prototype of an energy weapon for a ground vehicle and installed it on a tracked chassis. The first laser tank was born. It was meant to burn out enemy cameras, scopes, and seekers using high-powered ruby lasers. In 1992, the first prototypes rolled out of the factory, but the economic chaos in the wake of the Soviet collapse forced the government to cancel the program. The Zil-157. The Soviet Union was a pretty forward-thinking place in regard to tanks and SP guns, but woefully backward in the area of trucks and transportation in general. When they received the first series of US trucks under Lend-Lease in 1942, they were amazed at both the sophistication of American trucks and their reliability and ruggedness. After the war, the Soviet truck industry built its own version of the 2 American trucks as the ZIS-151, but not long after, the Zil-157 took its place. The Zil-157 was basically a 3-metric-ton cargo truck, meaning it had a cross-country cargo rating of 3,000 kilograms, or about 6,615 pounds. On paved roads, this could surge up to 7,500 kilograms plus a trailer, but for the most part, the vehicle was not strained that heavily. It had a crew of 2 and could carry a normal load of 12 to 16 soldiers in the rear cargo body thanks to folding seats. PL-01 Stealth Tank. This is the world's first 5th-generation stealth tank which is practically invisible to infrared and radar detection. Developed by the Polish state-owned defense firm Obram with support from BAE Systems. The primary weapon of the PL-01 will either be a 105mm or 120mm gun fed by an autoloader that ensures a rate of fire of 6 rounds a minute. The gun will fire both conventional anti-tank rounds and anti-tank guided missiles. PL-01 can carry 45 rounds for the main gun, 16 of which are located inside the robot turret, with the remainder stored within the hull. The tank is also armed with a 7.62mm caliber UKM-2000C machine gun with 1,000 rounds of ammunition. A remote-controlled weapon station on the turret can accept a 7.62mm or 12.7mm machine gun or a 40mm automatic grenade launcher. The turret will also house an Active Protection System or APS to neutralize incoming ATGMs or RPGs. The PL-01 is scheduled to enter production this year. M80 Stiletto. The M Ship Company designed the M80 Stiletto and it was built by Knight & Carver, a commercial and private shipbuilder out of San Diego, California, utilizing advanced composites and a slew of then cutting-edge technologies with an emphasis on adaptability. The vessel was originally envisioned as the centerpiece of an initiative called Project Wolfpack, which aimed to revolutionize net-centric command and control capabilities and combat effectiveness of small ships, operating cooperatively with other vessels. Think of the M80 Stiletto as a stealthy floating supercomputer, mothership, and command and control station that is capable of rocketing through the water at high speeds in very shallow waters. The ship is powered by a quartet of Caterpillar C-32 1,652 horsepower engines and can hit velocities of nearly 70 miles per hour or 60 knots. The ship went from concept to a reality in just 18 months, incredibly fast considering how unique it was at the time, and frankly, how unique it still is today. The cost to build the M80 was a relatively scant $10 million. Although neither the M80 or its M-shaped hull made it into active service, this Millennium Falcon of Navy vessels' influence on other designs and subsystems that did is undeniable. Juliet Marine Ghost Stealth Boat. If you combined a stealth jet fighter and an attack helicopter and stuck them in the water, what would you get? Enter the JMS Ghost, which uses supercavitation by surrounding an object with a bubble of gas, so it can pass through the water with very little friction. In the case of the Ghost, the objects in question are its 2 submerged buoyant tubular foils. Although it isn't clear how the process works because most of that technology is a secret, presumably the foils are designed in such a way that when Ghost's gas turbines thrust it forward, water is deflected outward at the front of each foil, creating an envelope that closes behind it. The 3 crew-member watercraft is intended primarily to patrol the perimeter of naval fleets, ready to spring into action against attacking small enemy boats. Sea Shadow IX-529. Originally built in 1985 by Lockheed Martin, the Sea Shadow was intended to test whether the same technologies that spawned the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter could be applied to naval vessels as well. But in secret for $50 million, the Sea Shadow demonstrated that it could not only evade radar and sneak up on other ships, but that it could survive intense storms thanks to its twin-hull design. Finally unveiled to the public in 1993, the Sea Shadow never went into production and was little more than an experiment. For the HMB-1, its time with the Sea Shadow was an encore career. It had already made its name being used in Project Azorian, a top-secret CIA operation which raised the downed Soviet submarine K-129 in 1974. With limited space on board and no real practical use beyond experimentation, the Navy attempted to give the Sea Shadow to any interested museum. There were no takers, and the ship was sold for scrap for $2.5 million. UH-19 RXW Hoverwing. The UH-19 XRW Hoverwing isn't a craft that was designed by the military. However, it could have some military uses and is advertised as a possible military vehicle. Smooth lines, excellent aerodynamics, and a high-efficiency drive system keep the noise inside and outside the cockpit lower than any manufactured hovercraft available. Cockpit noise is further reduced by enclosing and insulating the engine. It's normal to hold a conversation with others in the craft while cruising at 50 miles per hour. Its flying in-ground effect enables you to clear obstacles and fly over rough water at speeds in excess of 75 miles per hour. Cruise altitude is 1 meter or 3 feet to 2 meters or 6 feet, and the craft can jump up to 7 meters or 20 plus feet to clear large obstacles. You don't need a license to operate one of these, and training to fly one is even included if you want to buy the Hoverwing. The price for the 240 horsepower model is around $190,000, while the 130 horsepower model is about $20,000 less. Arleigh Burke Class. The first Arleigh Burke class Aegis destroyer was commissioned in 1991, and before this, no one knew a thing about the secret destroyer. The entire ship, except for 2 aluminum funnels, is constructed from steel, with vital areas protected by 2 layers of steel and 70 tons of Kevlar armor. The Arleigh Burke class destroyers are equipped with the Aegis Combat System, which integrates the ship's sensors and weapon systems to engage anti-ship missile threats. The ships are armed with 56 Raytheon Tomahawk cruise missiles, with a combination of land attack missiles with a TERCOM-aided navigation system and anti-ship missiles with inertial guidance. The standard SM-2MR Block 4 surface-to-air missiles with command and inertial guidance remain at the center of the Aegis system. Both Tomahawk and Standard missiles are fired from 2 Lockheed Martin Mk-41 vertical launch systems. The destroyers are powered by 4 GE LM2500 gas turbines, each rated at 33,600 horsepower, with a power turbine speed of 3,600 RPM, driving 2 shafts with controllable pitch propellers.